Joining me now, Democratic Congressman Adam Smith of Washington. He's a member of the Armed Services Committee. Welcome, Congressman. It's good to talk to you about this. So in the president's Oval Office address on Thursday, he equated that spending with our national security. But almost 18 days now without a speaker, the House is paralyzed. Can Congress act anytime soon on the president's request?
Well, those are two separate important questions. One, I think President Biden did a really good job in explaining why this is important. It's important for the stability of the world, and the stability of the world is in the best interest of the United States. In both Ukraine and what we've seen from Hamas, there is an effort to pick war and chaos and violence over democratic institutions. The U.S. needs to be part, not the entire, but part of working together with the global community to get to a better outcome. So it's really important we do that. And yes, it's not going to be possible until the House elects a speaker, and that is a major problem. I mean, it's also a major problem not having a speaker, but let's keep in mind, it was a major problem when Kevin McCarthy was speaker. In my view, we're better off now than we were with McCarthy as speaker, because he was going to block everything anyway. We need this transition, but it needs to happen, because without a speaker, we're not going to be able to move forward on this, keeping the government open, funding appropriations bills, a host of issues.
So Jim Jordan couldn't muster enough Republican support, so he's out as the speaker nominee. But the question is now what? If you say that you are more hopeful at this point, is that because hope springs eternal? You think there will be a better candidate there to lead the House?
Well, better than Kevin McCarthy, yes. But let's keep in mind that is an incredibly low bar to jump over. I think people miss the fact that McCarthy had no intention of bringing up any type of supplement. We are in a bad place. Don't misunderstand. I just don't want people to think that somehow we can speak fine. I think we very clearly learned that that's not the case. Now, I don't know how we get through this. The Republicans have completely refused to work with them, even on the most minor of ways. They will not reach out to us at all. If they did, I think a bipartisan deal, or as Hakeem Jeffries likes to say, a bipartisan path forward is there, but they refuse to do it, and yet they can't pick one on their own. They're going to have to make a decision here soon.
So you're saying Republicans are not reaching across the aisle to Democrats. How about the reverse? How much are Democrats trying to reach out to Republicans? Is there a specific crew of Republicans that are willing to work with Democrats?
Well, there are none right at the moment. And yes, Democrats are reaching out. You know, I've been in contact with Leader Jeffries. I've had conversations with Republicans. I know a lot of my other Democratic colleagues have as well. You know, and look, and what we're asking for is pretty straightforward, at least what most of us on the Democratic side are asking for. You know, keep the government open, give us a vote on a supplemental, and honor the appropriations deal from last May so we can pass appropriations bills. If they were willing to do that, which, by the way, they should do anyway, I think we can work together, but they're not. So yes, Democrats are attempting to have those conversations, and we're being rebuffed at the moment. And again, the Republicans can't elect someone because they have a very, very nasty internal dispute going on right now. I mean, look, those are the only two options: work with Democrats to get Democratic votes, or figure out how to do it within your own caucus. They've completely failed on the latter, and they refuse to try the former.
So you mentioned the president, who certainly tried to make the case to the American people to spend on 2 foreign wars during his rare Oval Office address. Let's take a look at part of that.
I know these conflicts can seem far away, and it's natural to ask, why does this matter to America? So let me share with you why making sure Israel and Ukraine succeed is vital for America's national security. You know, history has taught us that when terrorists don't pay a price for their terror, when dictators don't pay a price for their aggression, they cause more chaos and death and more destruction. They keep going, and the cost and the threats to America and the world keep rising.
Congressman, is it your sense that Biden's message resonated with Americans to the point of being willing to support billions of dollars in military and humanitarian aid to these hotspots around the world? And what are you going to tell your constituents who may not yet be on board with that?
Well, I think it's very difficult. I mean, we have a lot of challenges in the U.S., and I certainly understand the concern about where we're spending our money. But again, the president made it clear why it's important to us. And yes, we have domestic priorities, and we Democrats in particular are in favor of supporting those domestic priorities. Just in the last 2 years, when President Biden was in the White House and Democrats controlled the House, we passed over $6 trillion in support for domestic priorities. We are not paying attention to those priorities. We are. But again, global instability is bad for us as it is bad for the world. I think the president explained that in a very straightforward way. Terrorist groups threaten, not just Israel. And by the way, those terrorist groups threaten the Palestinian people too. And as we approach this issue, we need to make sure we need to protect Israel, but we need to chart a better future for the Palestinian people as well. But we need to be part of that discussion, and we need to be helping, because the world is in a very dangerous place right now, and it won't be better if the U.S. steps back and out of trying to be a positive part of finding a better solution.
Yeah, and I have to say, we're talking about a lot of protests, a lot of demonstrations around the world, one of which we're showing you right now. This is a pro-Israeli protest there in Tel Aviv, or I guess it's a show of support there for those kidnapped and still being held hostage. But as you well are aware, more than 100 bipartisan lawmakers sent a letter to President Biden this week demanding that he take a firmer stance on Iran for its funding and military support for Hamas and Islamic terror. It urged the administration to take all steps necessary to cut off Iranian funding sources. But I did not see your name, sir, on that letter. Do you think the U.S. needs to be tougher on Iran?
I think that letter is very problematic, and I have a lot of respect for the people who signed it, but I don't think they're thinking this through. I mean, among other things, the letter requires us to block China from buying oil from Iran by, quote, any means necessary. Well, the only thing we could do that would actually make that happen is we could blockade Iran. And we actually have the military capability of doing that. It's a very narrow strait through which China gets the oil from Iran, and we could easily do that. It would also be an act of war against China. We have to be really careful not to escalate here, not to create a larger problem. A huge part of President Biden's mission is to contain this conflict, to not let it spread, to not have Hezbollah get involved, to not have Iran get further involved. And if we are going to go after Iran, and in this case go after China that aggressively, that's going to have the opposite effect. I mean, I understand how terrible Iran is. We don't want a war with Iran, and we certainly don't want a war with China. So I don't think that this letter fully thought through the implications of what it was demanding that our government do.
You have explained your actions very well, sir. As always, Congressman Adam Smith, good to see you. Thank you so much.